Hello, my name is Richard Atimniraye Nyelade, and it is a privilege and honor for me to present this work on the racial and olfactory origin of social distancing. So these are my institutional affiliations. First, the Institute of Agricultural Research for Development, based in Cameroon, the University of Ottawa in Canada, and Shanghai University in China. Let's start first with the outline of my work. I will start with the methodology, of course, and I will present uh, physical distancing as purification and cure used by many societies since time immemorial. And I will continue with the WHO popularization of the term social distancing in the years 2006 and different pandemics that erupted since that period. And I will pursue with how olfaction rejection was used or practiced to distance from slaves since the first contact between the West and Africans during the slave trade era. And I will also mention that this term was not used, or this practice of distancing on olfactory criteria was not only practiced against blacks, it was also a practice against Jews, and it was used as a strategy of war between the French and the Germans during the First World War. So let's move now to the introduction of my work. So with the rise of the coronavirus crisis in 2019, social distancing has emerged in the media as a new buzzword. Politicians, journalists, commentators, news readers, senior executives, and experts started to use the term blindly. However, scrutiny of the term reveals a terminological mismatch between physical distancing and social distancing. While revisiting the history of social distancing, this work tries to uncover the racism loaded history of the term and how we can learn about questioning buzzwords before embracing them. So my methodology is based on socio-historical analysis of books, articles, and news magazines referring to social and physical distancing, to race, and the data was interpreted based on critical race theory. So physical distancing was first used as a strategy to minimize the contagion of diseases. And this was applied through what is known today as quarantine. And one of the period when it started to be used, known in the world, was uh, in the term of quarantine, of course, was during the 1346 plague that was termed as Black Death, that led to the death of millions of Europeans. And to prevent from it, people used to distance or to put in quarantine those who were infected in order not to infect others. And this has continued till today. But physical distancing was also practiced by the Jews, for instance, since the 5th century before Christ, as a strategy or as a recommendation for purification, notably when a woman was uh, in her period, in the period of menstruation. So, but the term social distancing started to be used in the media since the years 2006 by the WHO, the World Health Organization. Charles Gilbert, in a text written in the newspaper L'Express, mentioned uh, this term in the avian flu in his text entitled On ne se couche pas, which means we no longer touch each other, which refers to actually physical distancing, but it was applied or termed in the media as social distancing. So social distancing became a buzzword during the coronavirus pandemic since December 2019 and 2020. But people didn't know that this term social uh, also has some racial uh, history that might need to be assessed and examined by us. So let us recall how this happened. The history of chattel slavery, which operated by hunting Africans like animals shipped as cargo, sold as objects to work in plantations, is globally known but scarcely mentions the slaves' unsanitary conditions. These unsanitary conditions led to bad odor. That's how the first stereotypes about blacks were constructed and vehiculated throughout ages in Western societies. And many authors tried to explain this process, and one of them was Max Weber. And Lebrun, in his book published in 2006, uh, echoed Max Weber's explanation of social distancing against blacks based on odor. Uh, he said, I quote, as far as I know, the smell of the Negro is a recent invention of the northern states designed to explain their recent distancing of Negroes. So it is clearly mentioned distancing, which is applied to a community, uh, which is the blacks. So it is social distancing, and it was a pure construction or invention to use the same term as Max Weber. And it didn't stop in Western societies. Um these stereotypes have been used or have been observed by some communities, notably in China, by Cheng in a study published in 2011, terming or categorizing Africans as ugly and smelly blacks. And we have also a study by Land published in 2017, who said, I quote, many of our African interviewees reported unpleasant experiences traveling on the bus when some Chinese covered their noses at the sight of Africans or avoided sitting beside them. This is an obvious example of social distancing towards a community and based on some stereotypes that have been vehiculated throughout uh, uh, centuries and decades, and that has been continuing till today. And maybe the recent incidents between the Chinese some Chinese authorities in Guangzhou who evicted Africans who were suspected to disseminate the coronavirus in that city might be also linked to olfactory stereotypes. We don't know, but at least there are two studies that show these olfactory stereotypes in some parts of China. So, but it's worth mentioning that social distancing based on olfactory uh, stereotypes didn't was not applied only to Africans. There is the study published by Pierre Lugui Lanfranchi in 2017, who mentions that the prejudice of the Jewish stench was widespread in the Middle Ages, and it continued also throughout many centuries. There is also the study made by Juliette Courmont in 2010, where she uproots the olfactory racial stereotypes developed by the French against the Germans after the First World War. And on the other hand, the Germans also had some stereotypes against the French based on olfactory criteria. So it was kind of a pure construction because there was no, uh, let's say, scientific criteria to support this. So, but this happened also with the contribution of scientific racism and mostly the stereotypes of against the blacks. Uh, in fact, in the 1920s, the social distance scale became a social science tool, and Bogardos was one of the researchers who used it a lot. And this tool was alleged to measure prejudice by asking participants to describe how comfortable they felt interacting with people of another race. And the sad news is that it is mostly against the black that their discourse was mostly addressed, and he showed it in one of his charts that he shared in his book, the highest and lowest social quality index. And as you can see, uh, the Negroes, the blacks, in that terms, they were called the Negroes, were found among the people with the lowest social quality index with 3.84, along with the Koreans, the mulattoes, the Hindus, and the Turks. On the other hand, the highest social quality indexes were attributed to the Canadians with 22.51, the Scotch Irish, and followed by the English. And so, as you can see, this term was not innocent. It was also used by scientists to kind of assess the distance, and this contributed kind of to legalize this uh, this term in the public opinion, and it contributed also to kind of the distance or to the discrimination of the blacks in public arenas. So let's move to the conclusion of our. To conclude, it is important to remember how some institutionalized government sanctioned words can be loaded with racism. We need to assess them. We need to question some words. Don't. We shouldn't just take them as granted. And before popularizing words, government should study its history. They should understand what happened before, because some of them might have some negative connotations. So to come back to the COVID-19 sanitary measures or hygienic measures, it would be better to use physical distancing when referring to distance between people than social distancing, which refers to a community, which refers to an avoidance of a category of people based on race, color, or based on orientation, sexual orientation. So it would be recommended to use physical distancing when referring to distance, and social distancing might be racist word. So thank you very much for your attention, and waiting for your questions.